Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA Finley.
I'm very excited this morning, especially to talk to Chandler Finley. Yup, he has the same name as I do, and that's because he's my son. But he's here not because I love him, but because he has such great information. He's an immigration attorney, he's a corporate attorney, but there's so much news now about DACA, and Chandler is very busy, but I begged him to come on the show this morning to tell everybody what it is and what he can do. So good morning, Chandler.
Good morning, ANITA, Mom.
So you're what you are, of course, is you're an attorney who helps those people who really need help, and I'm very excited that you're here to maybe tell people who are so desperate. I listen to some of the radio shows on NPR, and I hear some of the people, they're in tears, they don't know what to do. So thanks for coming on, and just tell everybody what it's all about, Chandler.
Sure. So I'm an immigration attorney. I've been doing this now for more than 30 years. And under President Obama, when they had so many changes in the immigration laws that were being proposed, they had a lot of, they call them dreamers. Sorry. And dreamers are those people who came here as children with their parents, and for whatever reason, the parents came in on a visa, and the visa expired, so their time expired here with the children. Or the parents might have come in illegally, like a lot of the people coming in by boats in the U.S., in the Florida area, or across the border in Mexico into California, Texas, things like that. And it's not the fault of the children, but the children then were young. They attended elementary school, high school, and continued in their growing and becoming socialized and becoming American children. Really, they learned English and they went to school, and now most of them have graduated high school. They're now going to college. That's one of the issues. Some colleges allow you to attend college if you don't have papers. Different states have different laws. And so now some of them are graduating, and now they're having hard times finding their jobs.
Let me just interrupt you a minute. Some of the people on the show, Chandler, that I heard were Harvard graduates. Some were doctors, some were lawyers. These are people who are very, well established, doing great things in our country.
That's right. Well, they have to have been, when the law was created in 2007 under Obama, they have to have been under 31 years old at that time. And they have to have arrived in 2007, before 2007. That's when Obama created the law. And they would have to have been president of the United States basically since 2012 continuously, so they can't leave and all those kind of things. Now, once they got the permission to get DACA, then they could also have a travel permit and be allowed to travel. But so a lot of them, like you said, they went to school, they went to university, they got degrees, they became doctors. In the system, immigration is one thing, but the states and the colleges all have different rules. So you could have before, as things are changing now, but before, continued through university, got your licenses and things like that. Now, some states are different. For instance, in California, you can go to university and college even if you don't have proof of your legal status. But in Florida, it's a little more difficult. And in New York, you can do that in New York a little bit also. But for instance, in Florida, if you can't prove your legal status, you're not really able to go to university. And maybe you can't find a job also because you didn't have a work permit. But what DACA did, and DACA stands for Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. So it only applies to the children. It doesn't apply to the parents. So the parents might still be here legally, even though they came in, their time expired, or they came in illegal and they're illegal. But the children are now under this DACA program, which DACA is temporary protective status. It's not a green card. All it gives them is temporary protective status. And one of the promises of President Trump when he was running for election was that he was going to end all executive orders and things that Obama did about immigration. And one of those was the DACA. And so as soon as Trump came in his presidency, he started working on canceling DACA, and he actually notified the United States and all the DACA recipients that their DACA would be canceled even last year around July. And then there were some federal lawsuits that were filed, and the federal lawsuits basically stated that this was a program that was created by one president, and there were about 800,000 people in this program now. They think there may be even more than 1.5 million applicants that may be eligible, but they didn't apply or get their papers through in time. So about 850,000 students and dreamers and those kind of things that are now out on this DACA program. And Trump, when he declared that it was going to end last July, then the courts filed an injunction, and it's actually just last week went to the Supreme Court. And
I'm going to stop you for the Supreme Court. I want you to know you have a couple of people watching, Linda Soljay and Tammy Fields. This is Chandler Finley. He is a immigration attorney, happens to be my son, and I'm very excited to have him on this morning. I'm going to give you a phone number. Remember, it's Pencil Talk Radio. Write it down in case this applies to you or your friends. 561-478-9930. 561-478-9930. Okay, Chandler, continue.
All right, so the Supreme Court heard this issue for the first time, basically, and the point is, the issue is, can President Trump terminate a presidential executive order? Now, Obama created the executive order, and Trump has canceled many other executive orders, but this one seemed to have much more seriousness about the impact it would have on people in America and those kind of things. And so the Supreme Court, basically, when you look at constitutional law and precedent, says that the president basically has the right to cancel proclamations or executive orders that were by previous administration. So the discussion in the court seemed to sound like the court was going to uphold President Trump's termination of DACA. Now, the court is divided, so we don't really know what's going to happen, but we're waiting for the decision. The decision will probably come out maybe, I don't know, sometime early next year or even before, but we think it'll be maybe February that the decision may come out. In any event, when it comes out, then Trump may decide they'll give a special time, like maybe another 6 months or some time frame, and then it'll be over. Now, what's important about this is that the DACA, again, is a temporary protective status. It's not a green card. It's not a permanent residence at all. It's not a temporary residence. It's just temporary protection for these people. Now, what they should be doing, everyone on DACA should be thinking about filing some other application, a green card application, a temporary work permit, or continuing to get some kind of a student visa. It's sometimes hard to change from DACA to another visa, but there are certain things that you can do, and you have to do it now because we don't know like I said, we don't know what the Supreme Court's going to ultimately say. But if it upholds President Trump's termination, then all these DACA people are going to have a time out for their current work permits and information, all that stuff. Now, of course, it's going to be a little bit of a scare because immigration now has everybody's address and everybody's phone number, and they're going to tell everybody that it's terminated. Now, please come into immigration, and the ICE officers, that's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is going to tell everybody you have to leave, you'll be deported. And of course, there's a lot of families that are going to be going with that as well, because as you know, we have it all the time when there's an important, like there may be a doctor or somebody that's trying to stay here. Obviously, they're educated, and they found out that now they no longer have the ability to stay here. But when you're a physician or a professional, there are other visas you can apply for, and these people have to start applying for these other visas.
Chandler, do you have anybody now in this situation?
Yes, we have many DACA applicants, DACA people. We've had DACA approved. It's been a program going on now for at least 5 years or more, and so many of the people have been approved for DACA. We're always telling them, you have to file something and get it done. So, of course, a lot of people have other relatives, and maybe they're applying for green cards for their relatives. Since a lot of the students, they were before 31, but now they're A lot of them are getting married because they're falling in love with American citizens, and sometimes they get married, they get their green card through that application. Sometimes if they have a visa or a green card application, they might even have to go back to their home country and get the visa and then return to the country with a visa with the green card. Sometimes you can't go directly from DACA, stay in the U.S. and change it to a green card. There's different rules because DACA is not a real status. It's a temporary protected status created by President Obama.
Well, I just have to tell you, Chandler, I'm so glad that you're here talking about this because many of us absolutely don't know what's going on, and we hear the news and we are just spellbound and we're upset. It just doesn't seem fair, and of course it's very involved in you as an immigration attorney for so many years. I know that it's hard on you too because you're someone who really wants to help people. So everyone listening, remember, I want to give you the phone number again. Even if you can either make an appointment with Chandler and his organization, or you can just talk to him. It's really important to take care of this. 561-478-9930. That's 561-478-9930. I know, Chandler, it must be so heartbreaking for you because I know you're very sensitive to have people come in and you have to go by the law, but I'm so glad you have other ideas for them.
Right. Like I said again, you have to apply for something. You cannot just wait. Even during the last 5 years, a lot of people should have applied for something and gotten out of DACA. DACA is the same problem also for all the Haitians. The Haitians with the earthquake that happened in 2010, they're also under a thing called TPS, which is Temporary Protective Status. And Donald Trump also said that he's not going to continue that as well because he said, listen, it's been a long time since the earthquake. People should have done something, and they're all going to have to go back to Haiti if they can't stay here and assimilate into the system and get another type of green card. So it happens to all these different there's other types of TPS where people get the temporary protective status to stay in the U.S. because of some emergency or something like that. But you have to, if you want to stay longer, you have to apply for something, and that's the way to do it. Now, there's lots of temporary work visas that you can apply for. There's also, green cards, and you have to either find a sponsor, someone that can hire you, offer you a job. There's a lot of healthcare workers that are on DACA, a lot of the Haitians and other people, also a lot of the students that have studied in the medical field and are now working in South Florida. They may also be on DACA. So that's an opportunity for a health institution or a family that wants to keep somebody here in the U.S. to start applying for them for a visa or a green card, so that even if the program is going to be terminating soon, they may be able to apply for something before it terminates and stay here and wait for the papers to be processed. Every application is a little different. So if there are other, there's lots of different programs, and there's lots of different visas. There's J visas and O visas and H visas. If you're professional, if you've already finished school and university, you can apply for a professional H1 visa in the medical field, perhaps. There were some DACA students that were becoming lawyers, and there was a question whether the Florida bar would allow them to take the bar exam because they knew that they were only temporary here and they weren't allowed to really work as lawyers. They didn't have a work permit, but they had the DACA work permit, and the DACA work wasn't permanent.
What happened?
Well, the Florida bar said that they could still, they took it to court and went against the Florida bar. That was a couple of years ago, I think. And actually the Florida bar said that, they can work, they can continue, and they could get them, they let them take the test. They passed the Florida bar, of course. And now they're working as Florida lawyers, but I don't know what their status is. And if they were still on DACA, if they didn't get their status changed already, then they may be a Florida lawyer that may be, terminated their status, and they have to leave and be deported if they don't have anything else to apply for.
This is very difficult. This is very involved, and I'm sure that there are some, you always see immigration attorneys, on billboards, and I just want to tell you something. Be very careful where you go, because I'm sure some attorneys were real estate attorneys, do a lot of other things, and yet they decide, okay, there's going to be money in immigration, I'm going to jump into that. Go to someone like Chandler, who really has been doing this for 30 years. And I want to tell you something else, that his wife, Stefania, is an attorney in with him. They're partners in the law firm of Wilson Elser. And so they're very smart, and they really help people. Now, you will help if someone's in New York, for example, and they want you. Well, you can't practice in New York, so what do you do?
Well, actually, immigration law is federal law. So I can practice federal law all over the country. I have cases already now in New York, California, Texas, Missouri, Nebraska. I do cases all over the country. And sometimes even they fly me out to their interviews, and I've been to interviews in other states because they want an attorney that knows the system, and there might be something I have to discuss with the immigration offices and like that. Now, the only thing in DACA cases, usually it's not someone with a lot of money. We do have, I would call it a discount or lower rate for some of the students and DACA recipients because they're not able to pay the regular immigration rates that we charge at a law firm, that kind of stuff. Now, our law firm is nationwide. We have 900 lawyers all over the country. We've got 37 different offices. If you find our firm, Wilson Elser, online, wilsonelser.com, you can go into any office, meet with some attorneys. I'll be glad to review your case by phone, by conference call, but there's someone that can help you in any of those cities, even in California. And that way I can still handle the case. We file everything by mail, so I can do cases from all over the country. It's just filed at a different center.
So the DACA situation, I'm going to go back to that. So in other words, the Supreme Court has heard this now?
Yes.
And everyone's waiting. Well, I feel so badly when you think about someone. Just imagine if you were with your family and you were a DACA person and you don't know what your life's going to be. You own a home, you have a business. I mean, this is very unsettling, Chandler.
Yes, that's right. The real problem is that I guess we've had this immigration buildup of immigrants in the United States, probably since right before Bill Clinton. In 2000, before Bill Clinton left, he created an immigration reform law that gave an amnesty basically to people who were able to find a job and have a sponsor, and that really helped a lot of people at that time. It wasn't a full amnesty, but it helped people for employment. And since 2000, we've had no new immigration reform at all to help these people. And so we've had basically 19 going on 20 years now of no immigration reform, and that's what's happened. And now you've had this buildup because people keep coming here, they keep becoming overstaying and illegal. Of course, we don't want people to come here. We don't want it to just be illegal in the United States. But for whatever reason, they've overstayed their time, or they've come with their families and those kind of things. There needs to be more, immigration laws that can get people work permits and get companies work permits or jobs. We do a lot of applications now where there are companies that they can't find enough workers in the United States. It's amazing to think that people are graduating all the time. A lot of the graduates are getting hired. They're moving out of town. They're finding places for other jobs or high-tech jobs. But there's a lot of low-tech jobs that are not being fulfilled somehow. A lot of country clubs open the season. They need a lot of people to work in their, the businesses here in South Florida. And so there's a lot of employment traffic that comes to South Florida during the season. But a lot of these companies, they still can't find enough workers. And even it's true that at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump even had what they call seasonal workers. When they had, in the wintertime, they had too many jobs openings at the Mar-a-Lago for hotel work and things like that. They even had a couple of H-2B workers working in the hotels as servers and in the restaurant country club area. They have since, of course, the president since to let them all go, and he's not doing that anymore. But they did that a lot because they need workers, and it's very hard to find workers.
Well, but in California, we need seasonal workers for the farms and all. And is that affecting them?
Yeah, that's the big area where the seasonal workers are definitely for the farms and all the agricultural areas. They need people to pick all the vegetables and everything that we all eat. And obviously the issue is once you start hiring Americans and raising the rates for employment there, minimum wage and those kind of things, it becomes very difficult for the companies to bring that tomato They talk about what's the real wage to support somebody to pick tomatoes and pick agriculture their whole life, and that's a big issue. And a lot of these companies bring in seasonal agriculture workers. They bring them at different rates. They work at different rates than you and I know about. But it's a important part of our community and society.
So my guest is Chandler Finley. Chandler happens to be my son, my beloved son, and his wife is also an immigration attorney, along with Chandler, and a very big law firm in Miami. They have offices in Wellington. So wherever you're listening, they will certainly either come to you or you can go to their office. It's 561-478-9930. If you forget the number, you can call our office and we'll give it to you. But this is a very interesting subject about DACA. We really appreciate that you took your time coming up from Miami to talk to us here in the studio. It's I don't think I've ever had anyone do this before on this, because this is such a specific problem, and yet we are hearing about it all the time, and we really wanted the right answers, Chandler. So you've been an immigration attorney from the very beginning, and of course you do more things. Why don't you talk about some of the other parts of law that you deal with?
Right. Well, mostly we are bringing companies and individuals into the U.S. legally by applying visas for them before they get here, and then when they arrive here, maybe they're being hired. We have doctors and even professional engineers, architects, things like that come to the United States, and they're being hired by companies that they want to have foreign architects and things like that, professionals. We also bring a lot of the entertainers that are on the cruise ships. A lot of them are from England, Australia. I don't know if you have been on the cruise ships and you heard them. A lot of them sing with a British accent. A lot of them, there's so many of the singers are on the ships. And they are also from those areas, so we do a lot of the visas for them on those ships. And
then the Polo, I know out at Polo you bring in a lot
right.
of them. And how do they get to come in and go?
Well, there's a sports visa called a P for player, basically, visa. And they're able to, we apply for the visas well in advance, and they come and they're playing polo. And also the equestrian riders from all over the world, from Germany, from Spain, Mexico, everywhere. And they're coming in and doing competition in Wellington for their visa work. We also bring their crews as well. We bring the horse trainers, we bring the coaches.
And you bring the horses.
And the horses come in, that's right, the horses do. They have to go through their own quarantine, but that's a different issue. But the visa work is also sports and entertainment. That's a big field that we work on also as well.
So I guess, before we run out of time, I just want to go over this again. So if someone is now a DACA person, as you explained it, the best thing for them to do is to call your office, make an appointment, and to maybe apply for something else while everybody's waiting. How long does it take from the time that you deal with someone that they even can get something that they'll be so happy with? Is it a year? Is it longer?
Well, yeah, things take time. There are green cards, which are low, middle skilled green cards. They may take up to 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years. So that's a real problem if your DACA is expiring within the next 6 months. There are other types of visas where you can actually apply for them, and maybe you get the visa approved in 60 to 90 days. And there are also rush fees for some visas. So, but the important thing is, usually when people come to our office, it takes maybe 60 days before we can actually file another visa for them, make sure they're qualified, they're eligible, get information, a lot of paperwork on your background, a lot of paperwork from the company that's going to sponsor you. Companies have to sometimes be a real company that have the ability to pay your wage and your salary, things like that. And so it takes a lot of paperwork to get things started. And so it takes time. So like I always say, don't wait till the last minute when DACA is going to expire and run in, because we have to take care of things way in advance.
So when you think about this, now you said that the Supreme Court is hearing this, and now let's say that of course, if they agree, which would be fantastic, they'll probably agree with certain specifications and all, but let's say that they don't agree. And there'll be a time limit, and these people you're actually saying would have to exit the country?
Well, yeah, I mean, their temporary protective status would expire, and unless they file for something else, that's their work permit or their visa is expiring. So they would have to leave the country. They would have to leave, and the problem is
Where are
once
they going to go?
well, back to their home country. I mean, they have to go. They can either go to another country. Maybe they go to Canada instead. Canada has a much easier immigration system, actually, than the United States. And Canada takes in a lot of people because they have a need for more workers in Canada, it seems like. But in the United States, with the times today, immigration is getting difficult, and we're trying not to have more jobs for immigrants. And President Trump is pushing immigration and the law to the end to try to stop immigration and making more difficult, higher criteria for immigrant visas. And so it's harder to get even the cases to get approved if you want to apply for the U.S. also right now.
You once, I thought, said that if people have very specific jobs that are needed here in the United States, that they stand a much better
right. Well,
chance.
like for instance, like nurses, there's a national shortage of nurses, or registered nurses. So if you're a registered nurse, there's a special law that says you can apply for a green card to be for the nurse job. You need a sponsor, and those are very important jobs. Obviously.
What does a sponsor do?
Well, a sponsor would be a medical company or a doctor or a hospital. They have to sign the papers to say we're going to hire this person, and we have a shortage of nurses in the area, and then they're going to offer that person a job. They have to show they have enough money to pay the salary for a nurse. You just can't sign papers and not be a real company. You have to be a real hospital and show that you've been recruiting and hiring nurses in the past, and so that they're going to have proof that this is a real job.
You know, Linda Sauget, of course, is listening. We have another Linda Belgrave who's listening, but Linda Sauget, if you're still there, you work in the hospital field and all. I mean, this is good information for you, and I'm really hoping that we do have a lot of listeners, watchers right now. This is so important. I don't know anywhere else where you could get someone to talk about this like on the radio. I'm so glad that you came up, Chandler. This is really important. We're going to let you to keep going because we have another guest that's supposed to come in, but if he doesn't, we're just going to let you go. I hope you're up for it.
Okay.
But let's. I guess I want to go back to that. So, if you said it's a sponsor, let's say someone came to you to be a lawyer. Can you sponsor someone who can be a lawyer?
Yes. I mean, even as a law degree, it's a professional job, and you can sponsor someone for any professional job. Most professional jobs, they usually start with a temporary visa, like an H-1 visa or an O-1 visa, and after the visa, you can then, or even during the visa, while the visa is going on for the 3-year period, they can apply for the green card. So while they're here for 3 years, the green card might be able to be approved in the 2-year period. So they leave the H-1 and they go from the visa to the green card. When we talk about visas, they're more temporary basis. The green cards are permanent. So when I say green card, it's a permanent. And then after green card, it takes 5 years before you can apply for the U.S. citizenship. So you have to have the green card first. And one of the interesting things when people are talking about the pathway to U.S. citizenship, one of the things that I think that's a wrong way to look at immigration in America. I think it's good to get the people that are here legally, get them working, get them work permits, get them legalized. They then can get the insurance for their car's insurance, their homeowner insurance, their kids in school, get the right jobs. But that would mean that they're legally here. If you want at that time then to offer them some kind of green card or permanent residence after they can prove that everything's good about them. We're talking people also that don't have criminal records, and there are even in DACA provisions that if you've been arrested before, you would not be able to get DACA approved. So there's a lot of criminal laws and conditions on all these types of visas and things like that. So once you're able to work here for a certain amount of time, then I think it makes sense to have a way to get the green card first. And then, of course, after the green card, in 5 years, then you could apply for citizenship. But it's not going from work permit straight to U.S. citizenship.
I think, do you know Chuck Montgomery? That name's familiar. I thought you knew him. He was Was that the workforce? Something?
Yes.
Anyway,
right.
he's watching. He's
Ken
listening.
Montgomery. Really?
Ken. Oh, it says Chuck Montgomery. I don't
Okay.
know. But anyway, I want everyone to know that we're really happy that Chandler Finley has been here. It's a subject that we don't know much about, and maybe we'll have to have him write something in Boomer Times about this. But his phone number, if you're interested, is 561-478-9930. That's 561-478-9930. And we're going to give him a little bit more time, and then we're going to go to our next guest, who is Anthony Culp, big real estate guy in South Florida. So, Chandler, I thank you very much for coming in, and you've been terrific. I mean, all the people
Sure.
now watching, and I know that this is an important subject, and maybe we will get you to write something in Boomer Times, because, Boomer Times has a lot of people, older adults, but they have people helping them, and a lot of those people who
That's
are
right.
helping them are probably need DACA, or their kids are listening, and that's what they need. So we thank you for coming up, and we're now going to go to Anthony Culp. Before we do that, can we just play the Boomer Expo commercial? That would. Oh, he's played it 5 times already. He said, "Okay, we won't do that anymore." Okay, thank you, Chandler. We really appreciate your being here with us
All right,
this
Grace,
morning.
my pleasure. Thanks.